The great council chamber was silent. 200 species sat in their designated seats, watching the massive display screen with growing fear. Another star system had gone dark. That made 47 systems in just 3 months. Chancellor Vorn stood at the center podium, his forearms trembling slightly. His insectoid face showed no expression, but everyone in the chamber could sense his desperation. The Void Swarm had done what no enemy had ever done before. They had united the galaxy in terror. The Keltor defense fleet is gone, Vorn announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. All 300 ships. Destroyed in less than 2 hours. Shocked whispers filled the room. The Keltor were known as the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their ships were legendary. If they could not stop the swarm, what hope did anyone else have? Ambassador Hannah Park sat in the human delegation section, a small area near the back of the chamber. Humans were not full members of the Galactic Council. They had not been for 200 years. She watched the other species argue and panic, her face calm but her mind racing. Next to her sat Captain Dae-Ho Kim, wearing his Earth military uniform. He was not supposed to be here. Military officers were rarely allowed at council sessions, but Hannah had insisted, and for once, the council had agreed. They were desperate enough to bend their own rules. Dae-Ho leaned close to Hannah and whispered, "They are going to lose." "I know," Hannah whispered back. "They fight like they are playing a game. Rules. Honor. Formations." Dae-Ho shook his head. The swarm does not care about any of that. On the main floor, different species were shouting now. The Vryn ambassador demanded more ships be sent to protect their home world. The Pelthic representative wanted to negotiate with the swarm. The Morvok delegates suggested abandoning the outer systems and creating a defensive line. Chancellor Vorn raised all 4 arms, calling for silence. "We have tried every conventional strategy. Our greatest military minds have analyzed the enemy. Our most powerful weapons have been deployed. Nothing works. The swarm adapts to everything we do. They learn from every battle. They grow stronger, while we grow weaker." "What about the Kryn battle algorithms?" someone shouted. "Failed at Sector 9, Vorn replied. "The Helios Plasma Network. The swarm consumed it and used the energy to multiply faster." More suggestions came from the crowd. Each one was shot down. Each one had already been tried and failed. The desperation in the chamber grew thicker with every passing moment. Hannah watched it all, waiting. She had learned patience in her years as ambassador. She had learned when to speak and when to listen. But she could feel Dae-Ho's restlessness beside her. Military men did not like waiting. Finally, a new voice spoke up. It was Counselor Thex, an Avix known for his wisdom. "Perhaps we are thinking about this wrong. We keep trying civilized solutions to an uncivilized problem." The chamber fell quiet. Everyone turned to look at Thex. "What do you mean?" Vorn asked carefully. Thex gestured toward the display screen showing the destroyed systems. "The swarm is not civilized. They do not follow rules. They do not care about honor or mercy. They are pure destruction. Perhaps we need something equally uncivilized to fight them." Several species began talking at once. Some were offended by the suggestion. Others seemed intrigued. Dae-Ho smiled slightly. Hannah noticed and placed a hand on his arm. A silent signal to stay quiet. "Not yet." "What exactly are you suggesting?" Vorn asked Thex. Thex looked uncomfortable. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the chamber, until they landed on the human section. "There is one species in this galaxy that we have kept contained because we fear their methods. One species that does not fight the way we do. One species that scared us so badly 200 years ago that we locked them in their own star system and threw away the key." Every eye in the chamber turned to look at Hannah and Dae-Ho. Hannah stood slowly. Her heart was pounding, but her face remained calm. This was the moment she had been waiting for, since the swarm first appeared. "Absolutely not," the Vryn ambassador shouted. "Have you forgotten what they did? The Talos incident?" They turned a simple border dispute into a nightmare. They used chemical weapons, another voice called out. They destroyed 3 of our mining colonies just to prove a point. Someone else added. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Old fears and old grudges poured out. For 200 years, humanity had been the monster in the closet. The species too dangerous to let loose. Vorn raised his arms again, calling for order. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. Ambassador Park, Vorn said, his voice heavy. You have been very quiet. Hana stepped forward to the speaking platform designated for non-member species. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her. Some looked at her with fear, others with disgust, a few with desperate hope. We have been quiet for 200 years, Hana said, her voice clear and strong. We accepted your judgment. We accepted our punishment. We stayed in our home system and bothered no one. As you should have, the Vryn ambassador muttered. Hana ignored him. But now you are facing extinction. All of you. Every species in this galaxy. The Void Swarm does not care about your laws or your morals, or your civilized ways of war. They only care about consuming everything in their path. So you think you can stop them? Vorn asked. Where we have failed, you believe humanity would succeed? Deho stood up beside Hana. We do not know if we would succeed, he said bluntly. But we do know that you are losing. Badly. You have maybe 6 months before the swarm reaches the core worlds. Maybe less. And you would do what, exactly? Thex asked, genuinely curious. Deho's smile was not pleasant. Whatever it takes. The chamber went silent again. Those 3 words hung in the air like a threat. Whatever it takes. No rules. No limits. No mercy. Hana took a breath. This was it. You have tried everything civilized, every proper strategy, every honorable tactic, and you are still dying. Maybe it is time to try something uncivilized. You are asking us to unleash a monster to fight a monster, someone said quietly. Yes, Hana said simply. That is exactly what I am asking. The debate that followed went on for hours. Species argued for and against. Old wounds were reopened. Old fears were relived. But under it all was a simple truth that everyone knew. They were out of options. Finally, as the station's artificial sun began to set through the massive windows, Chancellor Vorn called for a vote. It was close. Terrifyingly close. But fear of extinction won over fear of humanity. Vorn looked at Hana, his insectoid face unreadable. The Council has decided. Your people will be given unrestricted military authorization. All sanctions are temporarily lifted. You may use whatever methods you deem necessary to stop the Void Swarm. Hana bowed slightly. We will not let you down. That is what we are afraid of, Vorn said quietly. Then, louder, for the entire chamber to hear. Last option. Set loose the humans. Deho smiled. It was the smile of a predator, finally let off its chain. Hana sent the message to Earth immediately. After 200 years of forced peace, humanity was going to war again. And this time, no one would stop them. The message reached Earth 3 hours later. Admiral Kyung-Soo Lee was in his office at Earth Defense Command when the encrypted transmission arrived. He read it twice, then sat back in his chair and laughed. It was not a happy laugh. 200 years, he said to himself. 200 years, they kept us locked up. Now they come begging. He pressed the intercom button. Get me the War Council. All of them. Now. Within the hour, Earth's top military leaders were assembled in the command center deep below the Pacific Ocean. Generals, admirals, intelligence chiefs, and strategic planners filled the room. Admiral Kyung-Soo stood at the head of the table, the message from the Galactic Council displayed on the screen behind him. Gentlemen and ladies, he said, we are going to war. The room erupted in questions. Kyung-Soo raised his hand for silence. The Galactic Council has lifted all restrictions on Earth military operations. We have been authorized to use any means necessary to stop an enemy called the Void Swarm. He brought up images of the swarm on the screen. Ships that looked like massive organic creatures. Battles showing entire fleets being overwhelmed and consumed. Star systems going dark. General Inho whistled low. They are really desperate if they are coming to us. Can you blame them? Someone else said. Look at those numbers. The swarm is crushing them. Good, Inho said coldly. Let them remember what it feels like to be afraid. Kyung-soo nodded. I understand the anger. We all remember the sanctions. The blockades. Being treated like criminals for 2 centuries. But right now, we have a job to do. We need to mobilize Earth's first fleet immediately. How fast can we get ships combat ready? Someone asked. 72 hours, another officer replied. We have kept the fleet maintained even during the sanctions. We never stopped preparing. What about personnel? Inho asked. We have not fought a real war in 200 years. Kyung-soo smiled grimly. That is not quite true. We may not have fought the galaxy, but we have fought each other. Training exercises, simulations, war games that were more real than the Council ever knew about. He was right. Humanity had not wasted the 200 years. While the galaxy had forced them into isolation, humans had done what humans do best. They had prepared for the next fight. Lieutenant Ji Woo Choi was in a bar in New Seoul when she heard the news. The broadcast came over every screen in the city at once. Admiral Kyung-soo's face appeared, looking stern and determined. People of Earth, he said, for 200 years, we have waited. We have been patient. We have been restrained. Today, that changes. The galaxy needs us. An enemy threatens all life, and we have been called to fight. All military personnel are to report to their stations immediately. This is not a drill. Humanity goes to war. Jiwoo set down her drink and smiled. She was a fighter pilot, one of the best in the Earth Defense Force. She had trained her entire life for a war that never came. Now, it was finally here. About time, she muttered, dropping payment on the bar and heading for the door. At the military hospital in Geneva, Dr. Minji Kang was studying biological samples when the alert came through. She was a xenobiologist, one of the few humans who had been allowed to study alien life forms. When the images of the void swarm appeared on her screen, she leaned forward. Fascinated. Incredible, she whispered. They are not machines. They are organic, biological weapons. Her assistant looked over her shoulder. Can we fight them? Can we fight them? Minji repeated, still staring at the images. Oh yes. But first we need to understand them. Get me everything the Council has on swarm biology. I want tissue samples, behavioral data, everything. The Council might not share that information. Minji smiled coldly. They will now. They need us, remember? In the mountains of Norway, Commander Tae Yang-song received his orders via secure channel. He was the leader of Earth's Special Operations Division, a unit so secret that most of Earth's own government did not know it existed. He read the orders, then burned them, as per protocol. His team of 30 soldiers was already assembled in the briefing room when he walked in. They were the best of the best. The most dangerous humans alive. We have a mission, Taeyang said simply. Full authorization. No restrictions. One of his soldiers grinned. Just like the old days? Better, Taeyang replied. This time, we are not the bad guys. Were we ever the bad guys? Another soldier asked. Taeyang considered the question. Depends on who you ask. Meanwhile, Captain Dae-ho Kim was already on his way back to Earth aboard a Council transport ship. The trip would take 3 days. He spent the time reviewing everything the Council had on the Void Swarm. Battle reports, tactical analyses, fleet compositions. The more he read, the more disgusted he became. The galaxy was fighting like they were in a parade ground exercise. Neat formations, coordinated strikes, carefully planned strategies. Idiots, he muttered. You cannot fight chaos with order. He began making notes. Ideas. Strategies. Things that would make the council horrified. Things that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Perfect. On the third day, his ship arrived at Earth. As they entered orbit, Dae-ho looked down at the blue and green planet below. Home. He had been born here, but had spent most of his adult life in space, serving as humanity's representative to a galaxy that hated them. Now everything had changed. A shuttle took him down to the surface, landing at Earth Defense Command. Admiral Kyung-soo was waiting for him personally. Captain Kim, the admiral said, shaking his hand. Welcome home. It is good to be back, sir. Though I wish it was under better circumstances. Do you? Kyung-soo asked, raising an eyebrow. Dae-ho could not help but smile. Maybe a little. They walked together through the command center. Thousands of personnel were working around the clock. Ships were being loaded. Weapons were being armed. Soldiers were saying goodbye to their families. The first fleet will be ready to launch in 24 hours, Kyung-soo said. I am giving you command of the forward assault group. You will have 30 ships and complete tactical freedom. Complete freedom? Dae-ho asked. Complete, Kyung-soo confirmed. The council gave us authorization to use any means necessary. I am passing that authorization down to you. Win this war, Captain. I do not care how you do it. My, Dae-ho nodded slowly. Understood, sir. The next day, Earth's first fleet launched from orbital stations around the planet, 150 warships, carrying the hopes and fears of humanity. They were not the largest ships in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they were crewed by humans. And that made them the most dangerous. Lieutenant Ji-woo Choi sat in the cockpit of her fighter, one of 200 such craft attached to the fleet. She ran through her pre-flight checklist, her hands moving with practiced ease. Viper Squadron. This is Control, a voice said in her ear. You are cleared for launch. Copy that, Control, Ji-woo replied. Viper Squadron. Let us show these aliens how humans fly. Her squadron launched from the carrier, small fighters streaking into the darkness of space. Behind them, the massive warships of the fleet formed up in formation. For now, the fleet's first destination was a system called Praxis 7. According to Council intelligence, the Void Swarm had attacked it 2 days ago. The system's defense fleet was still fighting, but they would not last much longer. It would take the human fleet 6 days to get there. 6 days to prepare. 6 days to plan. Dr. Minji Kang spent those 6 days in her laboratory aboard the flagship, studying everything she could about the swarm. She barely slept. Barely ate. Her entire focus was on understanding the enemy. On the 5th day, she made a discovery. She called Captain Dae-ho to her lab immediately. I found something, she said, pointing to data on her screen. The swarm is not just a mindless horde. They are intelligent. They learn. They adapt. But there is a pattern to how they learn. Explain, Dae-ho said. They observe their enemy, copy successful tactics, and counter them. But they have only fought civilized species. Species that fight in predictable ways. Minji looked at Dae-ho, seriously. They have never fought a true predator species. And humans are predators. We are the predators, Minji confirmed. We are ambush hunters. Pack hunters. We use tools and tricks and deception. The swarm has never seen anything like us. Dae-ho smiled slowly. So, we have an advantage. For now, Minji said. But only if we use it correctly. If we fight them the way the Council fights, we will lose, just like the Council. We need to be unpredictable. Chaotic. We need to hunt them. Minus providing. We need to hunt them. On the 6th day, the human fleet arrived at Praxis 7. The system was in chaos. The planet was burning. The defense stations were gone. The Council fleet was down to 12 ships, surrounded by hundreds of swarm vessels. Admiral Kyung-soo opened a channel to Captain Dae-ho. The survivors are requesting immediate assistance. They want us to reinforce their position. Dae-ho studied the tactical display. No. No? We do not reinforce. We do not play their game. Dae-ho's eyes were cold and calculating. Tell the fleet to hold position. We watch. We learn. And then we strike. Captain, those people will die. They are already dead, Dae-ho said bluntly. But their deaths will teach us how to kill the swarm. That is more valuable. It was a brutal calculation. But it was the human way of war. Cold. Practical. Ruthless. The human fleet held position at the edge of the system and watched the swarm destroy the last Council ships. They recorded everything. Every tactic. Every movement. Every weakness. And when it was over, when the swarm thought they had won, Ji-woo's fighter squadron struck from the darkness. They did not attack in formation. They did not follow standard tactics. They came in fast and chaotic, hitting targets and vanishing before the swarm could respond. For the first time in its existence, the Void Swarm faced something it did not understand. It faced humanity. The first human attack lasted exactly 7 minutes. Lieutenant Ji-woo Choi led her squadron in fast, targeting the swarm's largest vessels with precise missile strikes. Her fighters moved like angry insects, impossible to track, impossible to predict. The swarm tried to respond with their usual tactics. They formed defensive spheres. They launched counterstrikes. But the humans were already gone, vanishing back into the darkness before the swarm could target them. Viper Squadron, report. Captain Dae-ho's voice came through Ji-woo's comm system. 12 enemy vessels damaged, 4 destroyed, Ji-woo reported, breathing hard from the adrenaline. 0 losses on our side. Oh, good. Return to the carrier. Phase 2 begins in 1 hour. Ji-woo guided her fighter back to the fleet, which remained at the edge of the system. Below her, Praxis 7 burned. The swarm had won the battle. But they seemed confused now. Their ships were moving erratically, scanning for the new threat. On the flagship, Dr. Minji Kang was analyzing the data from the attack. Captain Dae-ho stood beside her, watching the screens. They are confused, Minji said excitedly. Look at their formation patterns. They do not know how to respond to hit-and-run tactics. They are used to enemies that stand and fight. How long before they adapt? Dae-ho asked. Unknown. Maybe hours, maybe days. The swarm learns fast, but they have to experience something before they can counter it. Then we make sure they experience a lot of different things, Dae-ho said. Keep them off balance. Never let them figure us out. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships. This is Captain Kim. We are implementing Strategy Janus. Half the fleet will use conventional tactics to draw them in. The other half will strike from unexpected angles. Confuse them. Make them think we are 2 different enemies. The fleet split in 2. One group moved toward Praxis 7 inches standard formation, broadcasting their presence. The swarm immediately moved to intercept them, forming up just like they had against Council fleets. But the second group of human ships came in from above the system's orbital plane, where no civilized species would ever attack from. They hit the swarm's flanks with overwhelming firepower, then scattered before the swarm could respond. The battle lasted 6 hours. The humans lost 3 ships. The swarm lost 47. More importantly, the swarm learned that humans did not fight fair. News of the victory spread quickly through the galaxy. The Galactic Council was stunned. Species that had written off Praxis 7 as lost were shocked to hear that humans had not only stopped the swarm but driven them away. But there was no celebration aboard the human fleet. They had won a battle, not a war. Where will they go next? Admiral Kyung-soo asked during the strategy session. They will either retreat to regroup, or they will escalate, Dae-ho said. Based on what Dr. Kang has told us about their behavior, I think they will escalate. We hurt them. They will want revenge. Oh, he was right. 2 days later, the swarm attacked a mining colony in the Helcor system. But this time, they came in force. 3 times as many ships as they had used at Praxis 7. The colony sent out a desperate distress call. The human fleet was 4 days away. We will not make it in time, Kyung-soo said. No, Daeho agreed. But we have other options. He contacted Commander Taeyang Song, whose special operations ship had been shadowing the fleet since they left Earth. Commander, I need your team on the ground at Helcor. Can you get there before the swarm? We can be there in 36 hours, Taeyang replied. What do you need us to do? Whatever it takes to slow them down. Buy us time to arrive. Taeyang smiled. Understood. B. His ship broke away from the fleet and jumped to maximum speed. Aboard the small stealth vessel, his 30 soldiers checked their equipment. They were about to go behind enemy lines, vastly outnumbered, with no support. They could not wait. Private Yuna Shin was one of Taeyang's soldiers. At 23, she was the youngest member of the team. She had been born on a colony world that was destroyed during the Sanctions era. She had lost her family. All she had left was the military and her desire to make the enemy pay. Any enemy. First time in real combat? The soldier next to her asked. His name was Dong Yun, a veteran of countless training exercises. Yes, Yuna admitted. Nervous? Excited, Dong Hyun laughed. Good. Stay excited. Fear comes later, when you have time to think. The stealth ship arrived at Helcor Colony 30 hours later. The colony was built into a massive asteroid, home to 50,000 people. Most of them were miners and their families. The swarm fleet was 3 hours behind them. Commander Taeyang gathered his team in the cargo bay. Our job is simple. We cannot fight the swarm directly, but we can make them pay for every meter they take. We use the colony's infrastructure against them. Traps, ambushes, psychological warfare. Psychological warfare against a hive mind? Someone asked skeptically. They have a mind, Taeyang said. That means they can feel fear. We are going to teach them what fear means. They split into teams of 3 and moved into the colony's tunnel system. The civilian population had already been evacuated to the deepest shelters. That left the soldiers alone, in kilometers of empty corridors. Yuna's team took position near the main hangar bay. That was where the swarm would enter. They set up mines, rigged explosives, and prepared ambush positions. Then they waited. The swarm arrived exactly on schedule. Their ships surrounded the asteroid and began cutting through the hangar doors. Yuna watched through her scope as the first swarm soldiers entered. They were horrifying. Biomechanical creatures that moved like insects but fought like machines. Their bodies were covered in armor like chitin. They carried weapons that were grown from their own flesh. Hold. Taeyang's voice came through the comm. Let them get deeper. More swarm soldiers poured in. Hundreds of them. They moved in perfect coordination, spreading through the hangar in an expanding pattern. Now, Taeyang said. The explosives detonated all at once. The hangar bay became an inferno. Dozens of swarm soldiers were destroyed instantly. The rest scattered, their coordination broken for the first time. Yuna's team opened fire from their hidden position. Short, precise bursts. They hit 3 targets before changing position. That was the rule. Shoot and move. Never stay in one place. The battle in the colony tunnels lasted for 2 days. 30 human soldiers against thousands of swarm creatures. The humans used every dirty trick they knew. They collapsed tunnels. They vented atmosphere. They used the colony's mining equipment as weapons. Yuna lost count of how many times she nearly died. Her armor was scorched and dented. She was exhausted, running on stimulants and pure determination. But the swarm was learning. They adapted to the traps. They started moving more carefully. They were hunting the human soldiers now. just like the humans were hunting them. They were odd about of the S-Potty SPNs. On the second day, Dong-Yun was killed. His team was caught in a corridor, with nowhere to run. Yuna heard his final transmission. Worth it. I'm worth it. By the time the human fleet arrived, Taeyang's team was down to 19 soldiers. They were trapped in a section of the colony, with swarm forces closing in from all sides, but they had done their job. They had delayed the swarm long enough. Captain Daeho's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They did not waste time with formations or tactics. They simply attacked with overwhelming force. Jiwoo's fighter squadron hit the swarm ships from 6 different angles. The capital ships followed behind, their weapons targeting the largest threats. It was brutal. It was efficient. It was human. The swarm tried to defend their position around the asteroid, but they were caught between the human fleet in space and the human soldiers in the colony. They were surrounded. For the first time, the swarm retreated. They abandoned their ground forces and fled the system. Taeyang and his surviving soldiers were evacuated from the colony. Yuna stumbled onto the rescue ship, barely able to stand. Medic Jiyan, was waiting for them. You all look terrible, she said, starting to treat their wounds. We feel terrible, Taeyang said. But we won. Did we? Yuna asked quietly. We lost 11 people. Taeyang looked at her seriously. Yes, Private. We won. Those 11 people saved 50,000 civilians. That is what winning looks like. It is not pretty. It is not clean. But it is worth it. On the flagship, Captain Daeho was receiving reports from all sectors. The swarm was retreating from multiple systems now. The galaxy was cautiously optimistic, but Dr. Minji Kang had concerns. She showed Daeho her latest analysis. The swarm is learning from every engagement. Look at their tactics in the last 3 battles. They are adapting to our strategies. How long before they fully adapt? Daeho asked. I estimate we have maybe 2 weeks before they counter everything we are doing. After that, we will need completely new strategies. Then we escalate, Daeho said. We hit them harder, faster. We do not give them time to learn. Daeho, General Inhobe joined the conversation via holocom from Earth. We are ready to deploy the heavy weapons. The ones the Council never wanted to see. Do it, Daeho said without hesitation. We are past the point of worrying about Council approval. Back on the Council station, Councillor Thex was reviewing battle reports. He had been assigned to observe the human military operations and report back to Chancellor Vorn. What he saw disturbed him deeply. The humans were winning, yes, but their methods were savage. They took no prisoners. They used tactics that bordered on war crimes by Council standards. They weaponized everything, including civilian infrastructure. He sent his report to Vorn. The humans are effective, but they are exactly as dangerous as we feared. We may be trading one monster for another. Vorn read the report and felt a chill. What have we done? He whispered to himself, but it was too late to change course now. The humans were unleashed. All the galaxy could do was hope they would stop when the war was over. The weapons arrived from Earth 3 weeks after the first human victory. Engineer Sunho Jang watched as they were loaded onto the fleet's ships. Each weapon was marked with red warning symbols. Each one was something the Galactic Council had forbidden centuries ago. Are these really necessary? One of the loading crew asked nervously. Sunho looked at him coldly. The Council thinks they can win wars with rules and honor. We know better. War is about survival. These weapons will help us survive. Well, we have 2 Maintsev. The weapons included gravity bombs that could tear apart planets, biological agents designed to destroy organic matter, and something called the burning that Sunho had developed himself. He had not told anyone what it did yet. Not even Admiral Kyung-soo knew the full details. Captain Daeho studied the weapon specifications in his quarters. Each one was terrible in its own way. Each one violated some fundamental rule of civilized warfare. He approved them all. If we are going to be monsters, he said to himself, we might as well be effective monsters. The next major battle came at the industrial world of Nakros. The planet produced ships and weapons for 12 different species. If it fell, the Council would lose its primary manufacturing center. The Swarm knew this. They committed everything to taking Nakros. Over 2,000 ships converged on the system. The Council defense fleet tried to stop them. They failed in 4 hours. The human fleet arrived 1 day later. Admiral Kyung-soo looked at the tactical display showing the Swarm forces and shook his head. We are outnumbered 5-1. Good odds, Daeho said. We work better as underdogs, but even he knew this battle would be difficult. The Swarm had adapted to many of their tactics now. The surprise was gone. This would be a straight fight, and humans did not have enough ships to win a straight fight. We need to change the battlefield, Dr. Minji Kang said. She had been studying the Nakros system. There are 7 moons orbiting the planet. If we could weaponize them. Weaponize moons? Kyung-soo asked. It has been done before, Sun Ho-jong said over the comm. By us, actually. During the Talos incident. Daeho smiled grimly. That is what got us sanctioned in the first place. And it worked, Sun Ho said. Do it, Kyung-soo ordered. Whatever it takes. Sun Ho's engineering teams went to work. They landed on 3 of Nakros's moons and began installing massive engines and guidance systems. The plan was simple and insane. Turn the moons into kinetic weapons and drop them on the Swarm fleet. Meanwhile, the Swarm began their assault on Nakros. They bombarded the planet's defense stations. They deployed ground forces. They were methodical and efficient. Lieutenant Ji-woo Choi led her fighter squadron in desperate defense missions. Her pilots were exhausted, flying multiple sorties every day. They shot down dozens of Swarm fighters, but more kept coming. We cannot hold them, she reported to Daeho. There are too many. Hold for 6 more hours, Daeho said. That is all we need. 6 hours. Ji-woo doubted they had 6 minutes. Her squadron engaged another wave of Swarm fighters near the planet's orbital stations. The battle was chaotic. Ships exploded all around her. She took fire from 3 different directions, her shields dropping to critical levels. Then her wingman, a pilot named Bauman, was hit. His ship spiraled out of control. Engines dead. I am going after him, Ji-woo announced. Negative, you will be shot down, her second-in-command said. I am going anyway. She dove toward Bauman's damaged fighter, her own ship taking hits from pursuing Swarm vessels. She locked onto his ship with a tractor beam and pulled him away from the battle zone. I owe you 1. Bauman said weakly over the comm. You owe me 12, Ji-woo replied. But who is counting? Down on Nakros, Private Yuna Shin was fighting a different kind of battle. Commander Taeyang's Special Operations Team had been deployed to the planet's surface to protect civilian evacuation sites. The Swarm ground forces were terrifying up close. They moved like a living wave, overwhelming everything in their path. Yuna and her team set up defensive positions around the evacuation centers, buying time for civilians to escape. Contact, East Corridor. Someone shouted. Yuna turned and opened fire. A group of Swarm soldiers were rushing their position. She dropped 3 of them before her weapon overheated. She switched to her sidearm without hesitation. Beside her, medic Ji-yeon-oh was treating wounded soldiers while simultaneously shooting at the enemy. I did not sign up for this, she shouted. Yes, you did, Yuna shouted back. You joined the military. I joined to heal people, not shoot them, then heal faster and shoot more. Despite the dark humor, the situation was desperate. More Swarm forces were coming. The evacuation was only half complete. They needed more time. Taeyang made a decision. Team 2, fall back to the second defense line. Team 1, we are staying here. Team time. Commander, that is a death sentence, someone said. No, Taeyang replied. It is a buying time sentence. There is a difference. Yuna stayed with Team 1, 8 soldiers against hundreds of swarm creatures. She had accepted death before. But today, she would make it expensive for the enemy. The battle at the evacuation center lasted 2 hours. Team 1 used every weapon they had. When they ran out of ammunition, they used the environment. When they ran out of options, they used hand-to-hand combat. Yuna found herself fighting a swarm soldier with nothing but a combat knife. The creature was stronger than her, faster than her, but she was human, and humans were mean. She fainted high, struck low, and drove the knife through a gap in its armor. The creature collapsed, and she moved on to the next one. By the time reinforcements arrived, Team 1 was down to 4 soldiers. But the evacuations were complete. 20,000 civilians had escaped. Taeyang looked at his surviving team members. They were covered in blood and burns. Barely standing. "Good work," was all he said. In space, 6 hours had passed. Engineer Sunho Jang sent the signal. The 3 weaponized moons began moving. The swarm detected the movement but did not understand what it meant at first. Why would moons be moving? It made no sense by their understanding of warfare. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late. The first moon, moving at incredible speed, slammed into the center of the swarm fleet. The impact released energy equivalent to 1 million nuclear weapons. Hundreds of swarm ships were destroyed instantly. The shockwave damaged hundreds more. The second and third moons followed, striking different parts of the swarm formation. Captain Daeho watched the destruction on the tactical display. "Now," he said quietly, the human fleet attacked while the swarm was still reeling. They hit with everything they had. Ships that had been hiding behind Nakros's debris field suddenly revealed themselves. Fighter squadrons that had been conserving fuel suddenly unleashed a storm of missiles. The battle turned into a massacre. Not of humans, but of the swarm. Jiwoo's squadron hunted down fleeing swarm ships like wolves chasing prey. There was no mercy. No quarter given. Within 3 hours, the swarm fleet at Nakros was destroyed. It was the most significant victory of the war so far, but the cost had been high. The human fleet had lost 20 ships. Nakros itself was devastated. One of its moons gone forever. Thousands of soldiers had died on the ground. On the council station, Counselor Thex watched footage of the battle. He felt sick. The humans had won, yes, but they had used weapons that should never be used. They had destroyed a moon. A moon. Such an act was considered unthinkable by civilized species. He confronted Ambassador Hana Park. "You destroyed a celestial body. Do you understand what you have done?" "I understand we won the battle," Hana said calmly. "I understand we saved Nakros. At what cost?" "You have become exactly what we feared." "Yes," Hana admitted. "But we are winning. That is what you asked us to do." Thex could not argue with that. He reported back to Chancellor Vorn, his report more alarmed than ever. "We must find a way to control them. If we do not, they will be a threat greater than the swarm." But Vorn had other concerns. Dr. Minji Kang had made a new discovery about the swarm. She had analyzed captured specimens from multiple battles and found something disturbing. She called Captain Daeho to her lab urgently. "The swarm is not native to this galaxy." "Explain," Daeho said. "Their biology shows signs of genetic manipulation. They were created, or at least heavily modified. And look at this." She brought up a map showing the swarm's path through the galaxy. "They are not conquering. They are fleeing." "Fleeing from what?" "I do not know. But there are traces in their genetic code suggesting they encountered something that terrified them. Something that made them run across intergalactic space." Daeho felt a chill. If something scared the swarm enough to make them flee an entire galaxy, then that something is worse than the swarm, Minji finished. Much worse. He immediately contacted Admiral Kyung-soo. We need to interrogate a swarm intelligence. We need to know what they are running from. Where? Can we capture one alive? Kyung-soo asked. Not alive, Daeho said. But we can capture their command ship. Commander Song, are you available for a boarding action? Tae-yang's voice came over the comm, tired but determined. Always. The plan was set. They would hunt down a swarm command vessel and board it. Inside, they would find answers. But first, they would have to survive getting there. On Earth, General Inho Bae was overseeing the construction of more weapons. The war was far from over. The swarm still controlled dozens of systems. They were wounded, but not dead. He received a coded message from Daeho explaining what Dr. Kang had discovered. His response was brief and cold. If there is something worse than the swarm coming, we need to finish this war quickly. Authorization granted for the burning. Sunho Jang received the authorization and smiled. His secret weapon was about to be unveiled. Finally, he said. Time to show the galaxy what real weapons look like. The war was about to reach its final, terrible phase. And humanity was about to prove why being locked up for 200 years had been the right decision after all. The Swarm Queen lived in the dark heart of a massive ship. It was not really a ship in the traditional sense. It was a living thing, grown over centuries, expanding with each system the swarm consumed. Inside its organic corridors, the Queen controlled everything. Commander Tae-yang Song and his team approached the ship in a small stealth craft. After the heavy losses at Nakros, his special operations team had been reinforced with new soldiers. Private Yuna Shin was with him, her wounds from the evacuation center barely healed. This is insane, one of the new soldiers whispered. 21, Yuna corrected. And yes, it is insane. That is why we are the ones doing it. Tae-yang studied the scans of the Queen's ship. It was enormous, larger than any council vessel. Its interior was a maze of organic passages and chambers. Finding the Queen would be nearly impossible. We do not need to find her, Tae-yang said. We just need to get inside and plant the virus that Dr. Kang developed. It will force the Queen to communicate with us, or kill the ship trying to resist it. And if she decides to kill the ship with us inside? Someone asked. Then we die knowing we tried, Tae-yang said simply. Any other questions? There were none. The team breached the hull using cutting tools designed by engineer Sunho Jang. The ship's organic walls tried to heal around them, but Yuna poured acid along the edges, keeping the breach open long enough for everyone to get through. Inside, the ship was alive in the worst way. The walls pulsed. The floor moved slightly under their feet. Everything was covered in a thin layer of organic fluid. I am going to have nightmares about this, Yuna muttered. They moved deeper into the ship, following the path Minji Kang had mapped out from her studies of swarm biology. The Queen would be at the center. Protected by layers of defenses, swarm soldiers appeared in the corridors. The team fought them in brutal, close combat. In the narrow passages, there was no room for fancy tactics. Just violence and determination. Yuna saved Tae-yang's life when a swarm soldier dropped from the ceiling behind him. She shot it 3 times before it could strike. Tae-yang nodded his thanks and kept moving. They lost 4 soldiers reaching the central chamber. But they made it. The Queen was waiting for them. She was massive, 3 times the size of a normal swarm creature, her body integrated into the ship itself. Dozens of organic cables connected her to the walls, the floor, the ceiling. She was the ship, and the ship was her. Humans, she said. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a vibration in the air itself. Unexpected creatures. Tae-yang raised his weapon but did not fire. You speak our language? I speak all languages. I am the swarm. I am many. I learn from everything I consume. The Queen's massive eyes focused on them. You fight differently than the others. You kill without hesitation. You use weapons they would never consider. You are interesting. We have questions, Tae-yang said, about why you came to this galaxy. The Queen was silent for a moment. Then, She laughed. A horrible sound that made the entire chamber vibrate. You think we came here to conquer? Foolish humans. We came here to hide. From what? Yuna asked. From the devourers. The queen's voice held something that might have been fear. From the darkness between galaxies. From extinction itself. She showed them images, transmitted directly into their minds. A galaxy consumed by something worse than the swarm. Creatures that ate stars themselves. An intelligence so alien and terrible that even the swarm queen could not fully describe it. We fled across the void between galaxies, the queen said. We thought we could find safety here. But your species, you showed us that there is no safety anywhere. You are predators like the devourers. Smaller, weaker, but with the same hunger for victory. Taeyang felt sick. We are nothing like these devourers. Are you not? You destroy planets. You weaponize moons. You create weapons that terrify even us. The queen moved slightly, her massive body shifting. The difference between you and the devourers is only scale. We fight to survive. Yuna said angrily. You attacked first. We consume to survive, the queen replied. How is that different? Taeyang planted the virus device on one of the organic cables. This conversation is over. You attacked our galaxy. You killed billions. Now you will face the consequences. The virus activated, spreading through the queen's neural network. She screamed, a sound that made the entire ship shake. What have you done? Given you a choice, Taeyang said. Retreat from this galaxy, or die. You have 1 week to decide. They fought their way back to the breach, the ship itself attacking them now. The walls tried to close around them. Swarm soldiers appeared from every direction. Yuna took a hit to her shoulder but kept fighting. Another soldier was dragged into the walls and disappeared. They did not stop to help. They could not. When they finally made it back to their craft, only 16 soldiers remained. Taeyang looked at his team, all of them wounded, exhausted, traumatized. We did it, he said. Now, we see if it was worth it. Back on the human flagship, Captain Dae-ho received Taeyang's report. The news about the devourers was disturbing, but he pushed it aside. One threat at a time. Did the queen agree to retreat? Admiral Kyung-soo asked. She did not say. But the virus is working. Her command network is compromised. The swarm is losing coordination across all systems. Then we press the advantage, Dae-ho said. Now is the time for the burning. Engineer Sun-ho Jang had spent weeks preparing. The burning was his masterpiece of destruction. It was not a single weapon but a coordinated assault using biology, physics, and psychology. He explained it to the command staff. We identified the swarm's home cluster. 7 systems where they breed and resupply. If we destroy those systems, we destroy their ability to continue the war. 7 systems? Dr. Minji Kang said. That would take months to conquer. We are not conquering them, Sun-ho said. We are burning them. We use the biological weapon I developed. It targets the organic components of swarm biology and turns them against themselves. Within hours, every swarm creature in those systems will be dead. That is genocide, Counselor Thek said. He had been listening to the transmission from the council station. You cannot do this. 9. We can, Dae-ho said coldly. And we will. The council authorized us to use any means necessary. This is necessary. I am revoking that authorization, Thek shouted. This has gone too far. Too late, Dae-ho said. The operation is already in progress. Human ships had already deployed the biological weapon in 3 of the 7 systems. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The swarm creatures began dying, their bodies consuming themselves from the inside. Ships fell apart. Space stations collapsed. Everything organic that the swarm had created simply stopped working. Lieutenant Ji Woo Choi flew reconnaissance over one of the dying systems. What she saw would haunt her forever. Entire worlds covered in swarm structures, all of them failing at once. It looked like a dying forest. If that forest had been made of nightmares. "This is what we do?" she asked over the comm. "This is what humans are?" Captain Daeho heard the transmission. "Yes, Lieutenant. This is what we do. This is what we are. The galaxy needed monsters to fight monsters. We answered the call. In the Queen's ship, the swarm intelligence felt her children dying across 7 systems. She screamed in rage and pain. Billions of minds, connected to hers, suddenly going dark. She sent a transmission to the human fleet. "You win, humans. We will leave this galaxy." "Not good enough," Daeho replied. "Total surrender. Immediate withdrawal from all occupied systems. And you will provide us with everything you know about the Devourers." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then, "Agreed. But know this, Captain Daeho Kim. When the Devourers come, and they will come, you will understand what we were running from. You will understand that we were not the monsters in this story." The swarm began retreating from every system they controlled. It took 2 weeks for them to fully withdraw. The Galactic Council declared victory. Celebrations erupted across hundreds of worlds. But there was no celebration on Earth. Private Yuna Shin stood in the memorial hall, looking at the names of the fallen. Dong Yun was there, and thousands of others. They had won the war, but the cost had been terrible. Medic Ji Yan Oh stood beside her. "Was it worth it?" "I do not know," Yuna admitted. "We saved the galaxy, but we became monsters to do it." On the council station, Chancellor Vorn called a special session. All species were represented. Ambassador Hana Park stood before them, alone. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity full membership and all rights associated with that status," Vorn said. "You saved us. You did what we could not. We are grateful." Hana looked at the assembled species. She saw fear in their eyes. They were offering membership out of gratitude, yes, but also out of terror. They wanted to keep humanity close, where they could watch them. "The people of Earth appreciate the offer," Hana said carefully. "But we must decline." The chamber erupted in shock. Vorn raised his arms for silence. "Decline? Why?" "Because we know what we are now," Hana said. "We saw it in this war. We are not ready to be part of your civilization. We are too dangerous. Too willing to do whatever it takes. You were right to quarantine us 200 years ago. But you saved us," someone protested. "Yes. And you will remember that. You will remember that when you faced extinction, you called on us. The monsters in your closet. The last option." Hana's voice was firm. "We will return to our home system. We will watch the galaxy from a distance. If you ever need us again, if another threat appears, call us. We will come. But otherwise, leave us alone." She left the chamber in silence. Captain Daeho Kim stood in his quarters aboard the flagship, looking at Earth through the viewport. The fleet was heading home. The war was over. They had won. But he felt no pride, only exhaustion. Admiral Kyung-soo appeared on his communication screen. "Well done, Captain. You saved the galaxy." "Did I?" Daeho asked. "Or did I just prove that we are exactly what they feared?" "Both, probably," Kyung-soo said honestly. "Does it matter? We are alive. Earth is alive. The galaxy is alive. That is what matters." The Queen said the Devourers are coming. "Something worse than the swarm. Let them come," Kyung-soo said. "We will be ready. We are always ready." The fleet arrived at Earth 1 month after the war ended. A massive crowd had gathered to welcome them home. There were parades, speeches, medals awarded. Lieutenant Ji Woo Choi attended the ceremonies but felt disconnected from it all. She had lost too many friends, seen too many horrible things. The celebrations felt wrong. Commander Taeyang Song retired from active duty immediately. He moved to a quiet mountain cabin and tried to forget the things he had done. The things he had seen inside the Queen's ship. Private Yuna Shin stayed in the military. Someone had to be ready for the next war, because there would be a next war. There always was. Engineer Sun Ho Jang continued his work, developing even more terrible weapons. Just in case. Dr. Minji Kang studied the information the Queen had provided about the Devourers. What she learned terrified her. But she kept working, kept researching, kept preparing, because that was what humans did. They prepared for the worst and hoped for the best. 5 years passed. The galaxy rebuilt. The swarm never returned. The sanctions on humanity were never officially reinstated. But no one asked Earth to join the Council again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was the weapon you use when everything else fails. The last option. The monsters you keep locked up until you have no other choice. And humanity had learned their lesson too. They were content to be the monsters in the closet, the predators in the dark, the ones who would do what needed to be done. No matter how terrible. Chancellor Vorn visited Earth once, a diplomatic mission. He met with Ambassador Hana in her office in New Seoul. "How are your people?" he asked. "Healing," Hana said. Slowly. "We all are," Vorn said. He looked out the window at the city below. "I want to thank you. And apologize. For what? For what we asked you to do. For what we made you become." Hana smiled sadly. "You did not make us into anything we were not already. You just gave us permission to show our true nature. That is on us. Not you." As Vorn's ship left Earth, he looked back at the blue planet and felt a chill. Somewhere in those cities, in those military bases, humans were preparing for the next war. Building weapons, training soldiers, becoming better monsters. And someday, when the Devourers arrived or some other threat emerged, the galaxy would have no choice but to make the same terrible decision. Last option. Set loose the humans. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood before the memorial wall in Earth Defense Command. Thousands of names were carved into the stone. Soldiers who had died in the war against the swarm. He placed his hand on the cold stone and whispered, "You were asked to become monsters. You did. And you saved everything because of it. May you find peace." He turned and walked away, back to his office, back to his work. Because monsters do not get to rest. They have to stay ready. For the next time the galaxy needs them. For the next time civilization fails, and someone has to do the terrible work of survival. Humanity would be ready. They were always ready.